Today we're going to put this lawn aerator, that's a Core Aerator from tractorbasics.com. We're going to put it through its paces. We may even have to use a second tractor. Yeah, I'll let you know why. Let's get started. It's frustrating for me to have to say this in every episode, but YouTube penalizes us if we don't get as many likes as some other videos do, so please press that like button. We really appreciate it, and subscribe if you haven't done so. Now, I'm not an expert with Core Aerators. I'm used to using the Ventrac Aerator, right? The shaking aerator. I don't really know the optimal way to drive the machine. I know that I need a good bit of weight on the aerator to make sure it's going into the ground. And we have that. We're getting maybe 3 inches deep right now, and I think that's pretty good. I don't know if driving faster though would help or driving slower. It doesn't really seem to matter in what I've done here on camera. Now this aerator will hold water, so we can put water in the main pipe there. I don't have any in there, and that's because I wanted to control how much weight I put on it. Right now I've got 6 of these 70-pound weights on it, so roughly 420 pounds of additional weight. I just used some shelving that I sat in there, and then I can put those weights right on that. That's all the 1025R will lift. So that's all we can do with this particular tractor. If we feel like we need more weight, we're going to have to do something different. And so stay tuned for a little bit more on that. We may have to show that a little bit later here in this episode. This is the 60-inch version, the 5-foot version of this aerator, again from tractorbasics.com. Again, it's a Core Aerator. You can see the cores coming out here. They just keep getting jammed up through there. The top comes empty. Let me pick this weight up. And I can show you, this is just some shelving. I had only one piece, so that's why I cut it like that. But I think it's 16-inch shelving, and I just put it in there. And then the weights can sit right on that. The specs say it will hold 263 pounds of water in the tank here. Again, I haven't put any water in it yet because I wanted to be able to illustrate exactly how much weight I was putting on it. This right here is all I can get the 1025R to lift. I have to like rock it back and forth a little bit, wide open throttle, so we're right on the edge. How much weight do you need? I think that's the big question that I'm gathering out of this episode so far. And I'm just going to say it all depends on your soil types, it depends on your time of year, a lot of different things. We're going to see some different things happening here in the rest of this episode. But if you know that you have really hard soils, go with the 4-foot model. You might think, but the 5-foot's going to be heavier. Well, it might be heavier, but there's going to be less times on the 4-foot model, and your tractor's lift capacity is the same either way, right? If you go with the 4-foot model, you can put more weight on it and still lift it, so your weight per time is going to be more on the narrower version. And we can experiment with that if we have to by actually taking some tines off the end. We'll see how this goes. For these current conditions that I'm in, the main part of my yard here, this has been fine. In fact, I would say this is about perfect. We're going in roughly 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches for each particular hole. In fact, let's take a look now. Yeah, about 3 inches. What do you think is? Yeah, I'd say that right there is the surface level. Let's just try another one. Same. Same. Same, and that matches with this core. Okay, that core broke as I picked it up. I really think that's a pretty good depth. I don't think I'd want to go much deeper. I think I might start tearing things up, but I don't want to go any less either. That's good for that. I'm afraid it may not be good enough for what we really need to aerate. Let's move on to that next. I'm not going to try to convince you either way on the need for aeration. I can tell you that this yard has not been aerated since I've lived here. It's probably got a lot worse problems than just a lack of aeration. And who knows, maybe my soil type doesn't need it too much in general. But while I'm not going to talk about, you got to aerate and, try to sell you on that in any way, I am going to explain why I do think this area out here needs help. This is the area that we cut the hump off of. So in a sense, it's still the remnants of the hump. We're probably a good 3 to maybe 4 feet higher than the original soil here. This is still the remnants of the hump. Now, you can see in the video here that you're seeing now how we've tried to disc it, right? We've tried to till it. You can see it's hard. It's very compacted. I think it was run over with large, heavy equipment, dirt pans and big equipment like that, dozers and stuff when the pond was dug out. And it's just been left there for years. So we had a hard time even getting it scraped off to move the hump. And what we are left with is soil here that this won't accept much moisture. All the water runs off of it really quickly, so we're not able to get grass to grow on it yet much. And quite frankly, I should have either plowed it or ripped it or somehow dug it up deep before I sowed it in seed. I think that would have helped. But it's a little late for that now unless I kind of want to start all over. So what I'm going to try to do is see if I can figure out how to aerate this in an effective manner. Now what I want you to see to start is that I've driven out across here and these aerator tines are only going in about 1 inch. I'll check out these holes right here. That hole, okay, maybe a little over 1 inch. And it's really not even pulling a plug. It's basically just poking a hole downward like a traditional aerator that doesn't have a core, and that's getting all jammed in there, and it's not even pushing that plug out of there. Okay, we really need it to go deeper, and I've got all the weight that I can handle on a 1025R, so I think it's time for a little bit of Benford 3000 upgrade to see if we can get this thing to go in the ground. I'm loaded up now as much as I could find handy. I've got 10 70-pound weights, so that's 700 pounds. I've got 6 42-pound weights, let's say 250, pretty close to that. I've got it full of water. These specs say that the whole thing weighs 692 pounds when it's full of water. 263 pounds of water. I would say I'm pretty close given how I was able to fill it on its side like that. Estimate maybe 5 in the ground at any one time. That ought to be a pretty good amount of weight on a spike. Let's see what it does. I haven't seen this myself, but if this doesn't work, we'll have to find a totally different approach. Well, let's see if we see any improvement. The bulk of the holes are almost as deep as the orange, maybe a ½ inch less deep than the orange to the orange on my screwdriver. So that's much, much better. It really doesn't look like it's tearing up the soil much. It looks more like it's just poking holes. So we're not seeing, overall like the vibratory action of the aerator. I think this is probably doing us some good. We'll at least get some water to soak into these holes, and it should stay up here to some degree. Now when you see the stand of grass here, you can see that we've had quite a lot of problems up on this hill. And that's the reason I really think this did need to be aerated. It needs to be opened up a little bit so that we can get a little more water in there, a little more moisture in the summertime. As we get off of the top of the hill here, the grass is much better. And yeah, I'm sort of enjoying that. I'll have a separate episode coming up very soon where I show you the individual brakes, the steering brakes, and how they can help. And if you've got a subcompact tractor, you've never probably experienced it. So yeah, we'll have a separate episode on that. If you're having trouble getting your Core Aerator, or any aerator, a spike aerator as well, to go into the ground, the first obvious thing you want to do is add weight. Well, if you don't have a large enough tractor to be able to pick up the necessary weight to make it go in the ground, or maybe you don't even have that much weight available to you, there is another option. And that option is to take off these tines, take off some of the tines, right? So the first thing I would do is take off the outside row on each end. I've got 10 rows with 7 tines each, so I've got 70 tines on this particular model. And if I were to take off the outside 5 on this end and the outside 5 on that end, that's going to get me to 60 tines. Well, what are we saying? 12, 15% less overall tines. Obviously some of them are in the air, only a few of them are on the ground at the same time. But I think it would be fair to say that we have that many less tines. Yeah, you understand what I'm trying to say. And as we remove tines, we're concentrating all the weight we do have on the remaining tines that are in the ground. There's a lot of weight on the few tines. We could probably do some math here or some analysis and figure it out. I'd say there's only 3 or 4 tines that are going into the ground at any one time. And if we remove some of these tines, it's even going to be less of them at any given moment trying to poke into the ground. So, step 1, if you're having trouble getting your aerator into the ground, is to add weight. Add weight up until the time that you can't lift anymore. And then, if you still can't go in the ground, start removing tines, and I would remove them evenly off of both ends. You know, and even if you're left with only 2 foot wide, well, it may take a little longer, but that's a piece that really needs to be aerated, right? If you can't poke in and get in there 2 or 3 inches, you really need to get some aeration there. So that's probably worth it. This aerator came from TractorBasics.com. Use code TTWT to get a 10% discount on anything from that website. It's a division of skidsteersolutions.com, but just go to TractorBasics.com. There's a whole bunch of attachments there. 10% off with code TTWT. I'm sure most any Core Aerator would be fine, but this one's a good one. It's built heavy. It will allow you to put, 263 pounds of water in it. It's quick hitch compatible. I can hold the weights on top. A couple of things that I would do different. I may actually modify this one to build a taller 3/8 piece of steel here. I may weld onto the back so I can actually hang weights on it, right? Then I could hang weights on the way they ought to be put on. That might be a future project that me and Dave work on together. But that would just be an add-on that you don't need on a 1025R. Overall, for a subcompact tractor, I'd recommend a 4 foot. This is a 5 foot. I think a 4 foot is going to be your best bet a little bit narrower, a little bit more concentrated to get that downforce that you need while staying within your tractor's lift capacity. I hope this has been helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think about aeration, about this aerator, whatever. I want to hear. I don't know that much about aeration. I can figure out how to use the attachment. I can't necessarily fully articulate all of the value. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim. People will flee to caves in the rocks and to holes in the ground from the fearful presence of the Lord and the splendor of His majesty when He rises to shake the earth. Okay, I think I'll take off now. What do you think, Christy?
No, I think you might want to wait.
Hey, Iz, what do you think? What do you think, Iz?